I've been around disaster preparedness for a long time. First experience that I remember of disaster preparedness, I was standing in my parents' breakfast nook holding a cup of orange juice. And I was watching as our neighbor and my dad were helping a contractor fell a large 150-foot fir tree. Now I was just watching this, and my mom, who, now I must say in her defense, she does a home daycare business, so she needs to be adequately prepared. And as I'm watching this tree and I see it start to sway, and it comes and it cracks and it goes to boom, and this is a 6 to 8 foot in diameter circumference tree. And as that comes and slams down, and it hits and it comes and bounces up and it wobbles and slams back down again, I was just thrilled to see this and to feel the ground shake under my feet. And I was like, wow, this is pretty sweet. What I did not expect was the high-pitched Fox 40 whistle behind me. You know, the one that the NBA refs use. And my mom comes running into the room. It's the big one! It's the big one! Drop, cover, and hold! I thought it was hilarious. And she still says it didn't happen, but I think it did. Today I want to talk about how we used social media for to get the community really engaged in emergency preparedness. As with many of the great ideas in CRESA emergency management, we have a lot of initiatives that start with Cheryl Bledsoe going on vacation. Okay, no, that sounded better in my head. What I mean is she has the time to reach out and look at new things and evaluate really interesting ideas for us. So we started reading about a year ago this fantastic book called The Unthinkable by Amanda Ripley. One of the main points that I got out of that was that the public is an asset, not a liability in emergency response. This is really important for us to understand because it affects everything that we do and it propels us to engage with the community through social media. We realized that sending out a press release beginning of September to say, public, you need to prepare because there's not enough of us to respond, and you may be injured or die if you don't prepare yourself, so hey, good luck with that. In effect, right? We're saying here's ways you can respond. We give them tools, we give them resources, but that's really what we're saying. And so we said, you know, maybe there's something better we can do with that. So Cheryl Bledsoe came driving into work on August 31st, and at staff meeting at 1 o'clock, she said, hey guys, I have an idea. Let's try to do some little game, you know, and help people. And Home Alone Ninja gave us this great idea for how to have people search and be engaged in some of the material that we want them to. So we came up with about 58 different ways that people could be engaged in this. A couple of them, day 6, an easy one, was name the fault nearest to your home from this website from the USGS. Pretty easy one, Lacamas Lake Fault. It's about 10 miles away from me. So people got to go and report that back to us on Facebook, Twitter, or our blog, or email back to Cheryl. Day 13, a more difficult one, we tried to vary them a little bit, was how are you trained to help? If you've ever been prepared, or if you've ever taken a CPR and first aid class, you get 1 point. If you're currently CPR and first aid certified, then you get 2 points. If you organize 8 other people to take a CPR and first aid class with you, then you get 3 more points. So some stats on this and how we did it is we had 82 participants, 608 tasks completed, participants in 29 states and in 5 countries. It's fantastic outreach that we had. And some of the other things that we had after action items to that is that people thought it was fun and achievable, and that people used different social media platforms based on how comfortable they were. We had several, 3 or 4 self-identifying conspiracy theorists, I see 2 of you in the audience, thanks for coming, who said that they wanted to email because they didn't want to be on the public record, which is kind of funny because if you send government email, you are on the public record. And we had the relationship building among players, that they were able to help each other. And it was a really fascinating way for us to engage. People have asked, will we see 30 Ways, 30 Days again? Stay tuned in August to find out.
Hi, I'm Lise Harwin. I'm from the Oregon Trail chapter of the American Red Cross. You guys might have seen me this morning. I have had a lot of time in between my presentations. I just wanted to talk also a little bit about preparedness and a contest that we held at the Red Cross. The reality is no one thinks disasters are fun. Death, destruction, separation from family and friends, tragedy, loss, heartbreak. These aren't fun, pleasant things. And to be honest, preparedness, really not all that much fun either. To most, it sounds pretty boring, inconvenient, and maybe even expensive. But at the Red Cross, and especially at our chapter here in Portland, our objective is always to make disaster preparedness engaging, relevant, and easy, and to take it from being intimidating to empowering, and overall to make flashlights and food bars fun. As we like to say, we want to put the rad in readiness. So we try and do all of these things, and one of them was to start a contest, and we called it the Just One Thing Contest, which is actually a hashtag. And we started on Twitter during September of 2009, which is National Preparedness Month for those who don't know already. Our goal was to make getting prepared easy, and using that handy hashtag of Just One Thing, we asked our followers to let us know one small thing that they were doing to get prepared. The basic concept was every tweet, no matter how simple it was welcome. We recognize that preparedness is different for each person, and even the smallest step towards readiness is a step towards readiness. And that's really all we were asking people for. So on our end, we gave out a lot of suggestions to people to hopefully inspire them and get them to take some action. And of course, we provided prizes, and the first time around, they were fairly small. We had a first aid kit and a t-shirt and some really basic things. But in the end, the first year around, there were about 27 entries, very simple ways to get people started on the path towards being prepared. We retweeted each of the responses, and in the end, we did a wrap-up on our blog that included all the different ways that people were taking steps. And I'll give you a couple of examples. Nika7K said, I am dehydrating fruits, vegetables, trail mixes, and backpacking soups in case we have to eat without power. John Solomon, who some of you may know was actually a wonderful writer for the Washington Post, a reporter for NPR's On the Media, and a very good friend of ours. He said he was putting ICE, which is in case of emergency, contact numbers into his cell phone. That was just one thing he did today. So again, from entering some numbers into your cell phone to pulling together your preparedness kit, we had folks who made sure that an extra set of keys was left with neighbors or family members in case they needed to access their house in an emergency. Again, just really basic steps. So in the short term, we were able to engage our followers and remind Portlanders that preparedness can be easy instead of intimidating. But again, one small step towards preparedness really primes people for taking more, with the end result being what we all want to see, a safer and more resilient community. I'll tell you, we tried this again in 2010, so just last September. We had about twice the entries, and this time around we had great prizes that we did every week. We focused on family, pets, individuals, and businesses, and the wonderful folks over at the State of Oregon's Office of Emergency Management paid for all of them, which was fantastic from a nice nonprofit perspective. So our goal is for 2011 to hopefully get some more agencies involved and using the hashtag #JustOneThing to talk about preparedness. And ultimately, maybe Craig Fugate and FEMA will encourage the contest as well and get even more people involved nationwide. So I just wanted to leave you with a really simple thought. Sure, getting a few dozen people to say one small thing they're doing for preparedness may seem pretty inconsequential, but honestly, that's now a few more people who are ready to care for you in case of an emergency. And really, when social media is being used to promote brands and tech gadgets and things like that, what we all want to see is it being used to save lives as well. So thank you.
Hi. I'm new to the Pacific Northwest. I just moved here in December. Before then, I was living in San Francisco, and I was working as the managing editor of Wired.com. One of my responsibilities there was to work closely with the magazine to look for ways to enhance their print stories. And two stories really emerged as great opportunities for us to expand the social networking aspects and gaming aspects of those stories. The first was CuttThroat Capitalism, an economic analysis of the Somali pirate business model. This was a very dense story, full of facts and figures, and the magazine could have chosen to display it in a very dry and academic way, but instead they chose really fun, colorful illustrations and graphics. So when we had our opportunity to work on it on the .com side, we immediately saw that it lent itself to gameplay. So we worked through the story structure, its design, its content, and we rebuilt the story into a game. So in the game, you are a pirate commander. You are staked with 50 grand from local tribal leaders and other investors, and your job is to guide your pirate crew through raids in and around the Gulf of Aden, attack and capture a ship, and successfully negotiate a ransom. With each win or failure, players' profit rises and falls. So the game becomes just addictive enough to play again and again. The game was fairly successful. We had about 100,000 people play it over the first 2 to 3 weeks. But the more interesting part of this particular game was the conversation between journalists, journalism students, wondering what news as games meant. So we saw a lot of chatter on our Twitter feed and on Facebook, sort of talking about the aspects of what this meant from more of a larger perspective. And it even inspired a book, News Games, Journalism at Play, published by MIT Press. So basically, a lot of smart people were talking about this game and its deeper meaning, and they were thinking about it far more than we had. We were just looking at it as an opportunity to do something fun and interactive on our site. The next story that emerged was called Vanish, What Does It Take to Really Disappear? Writer Evan Ratliff asked, what does it take to vanish in this digital age of cell phones, GPS, databases, and social networks? So in his story, he had profiled several people who had basically faked their own deaths to escape jail time, debts, other personal problems, and tried to start their lives over with new identities. So he decided to try essentially the same thing. So when the magazine hit the newsstands, Evan went on the lam, and Wired offered $5,000 to anyone who could find him, with $3,000 going to Evan if he managed to make it a full month without being discovered. What followed was the most immersive online and social networking experiment that Wired had ever participated in. To support the game, we developed a new blog at wired.com/vanish, where we hosted the story and all the contest details. And the blog also provided everything that a plugged-in private investigator would have. So to make the hunt fair, Evan's editor had access to all of his credit card information, his frequent flyer numbers information, his ATM, bank, personal accounts, and posted all of his transactions and email messages. Everything that he was doing online went on this blog. We set up a Twitter feed and a Vanish hashtag, a Facebook page, and so on to build community and keep a conversation going as the hunt went on. So meanwhile, Evan, as he's flying around the country and trying to rebuild his identity, he was required to act like a person who really wanted to start over. He had to create false accounts online, stay in cities, and live in a way if he were really trying to start his life anew. Social networking sites were really at the heart of this hunt. In their pursuit of Evan, sleuths living across the country exchanged intel and coordinated efforts via Twitter and created Facebook groups that recruited hundreds of members. So we documented each step of this whole hunt with blog posts, and after he was found, we published dozens of personal and news stories from the hunt and highlighted the massive social networking effort from Facebook pages, websites, hundreds of tweets, and even a wiki page. The question that emerges for me about these experiments, and then I present to you, is that by turning these fairly serious stories into games and exploring them as social media, are we diminishing their importance, their impact, legitimacy, or are we adding to that impact? How far are editors and writers willing to play with the facts and with their own lives in order to make news more entertaining? Or is this really just a new opportunity for journalists to experiment with fresh ideas? So thank you.
Hi everyone. Can I ask you to all stand up for a moment? Yes! Woo! Now, can I get you, those of you that play a digital game of any type, can I get you to remain standing and everyone else sit down? Wow. So keep standing, anyone that plays games more than 3 times a week? More than 4 times a week? 5 times a week? Okay, anyone that plays it daily? That's awesome. It's actually more than I thought. Cool, so please sit down, everyone. So I just wanted to get a very quick snapshot of gaming behavior within this room. Because at the moment, at this point in time, the average American child has spent 10,000 hours playing computer games by the age of, by the time they reach the age of 21. Now, what's interesting is, by the age of 21, they've also spent 10,000 hours in a classroom learning. And I heard this fact sort of about a couple of weeks ago, and it kind of shook me. I was like, wow, it's kind of crazy. I mean, this is happening now, and this is a very new emergence. So I guess in my kind of humble opinion is we need to look at how we might be able to migrate these behaviors learned from gaming and from extracurricular activities into the workplace. Because I think it provides an enormous opportunity for us as a community and society at large for a real seismic shift in like communication, innovation and collaboration. So as Generation Y sort of shifts into these positions of power within organizations, they're also going to be bringing with them these like modes of collaboration that are like off the bat inherently social. And they're also going to be bringing with them the behaviors they've learned online. So I think as a society, we shouldn't be scared of this, but instead we need to really sort of look at how we can embrace and adopt these. And we can kind of use these to kind of move forward together to kind of tackle wicked systemic issues that we're coming against. So the truth is that computer games are like fulfilling a genuine human need that the real world is currently unable to satisfy. And games are providing like rewards that I guess reality isn't. And people find themselves asking, where's the sense of community, engagement, where's the reward and recognition that I find online with my game, with my console, with this greater community? So in my work personally with Opal Labs here in Portland and in London, we work really hard and quite closely with organizations to try and like synthesize the insights that we find. And we've created a sort of a suite of digital apps to help kind of organizations evolve, to make them become good growth organizations. And the way that we do this is based on a recognition that with awesome culture, organizations can do anything. And our approach is building delightful apps for employees that surprise and delight them with the sort of a game layer on top, to build super teams to sort of get involved and tackle challenges. And it's a sort of an awesome space to work in, and it's lovely like watching people use this and sort of being surprised and delighted and finding that there's new ways that they can bring value into like their workplace and like learn how they learn and like what their strengths are and how they can actually enact in meaningful collaboration. So in our apps, we hope to sort of allow people autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And all they do at work. And you know, people don't want to be told to be more productive. I mean, that is the least engaging thing any person in a company could hear. So instead, they want to be empowered with tools to help them engage in disruptive change, to be in a supportive, creative environment where, much like sort of an improvisational comedy, where you turn to the person next to you before you go on stage and you say, tonight I'm going to make you look good. We want to foster this. We want to create these cultures within organizations where you make the other person look good, where I can throw out a crazy idea and instead of it getting shot down, someone can go, Ollie, that's a freaking weird idea, but I'm going to jump on that and I'm going to like, let's see if we can shape this into something. And 9 times out of 10, when you do that and you foster these cultures, beautiful things happen. Like new ideas are formed and the collective comes together and together you do knit up and you kind of rise a little bit higher. So anyway, I believe that sort of gaming helps us focus energy with a relentless optimism on something that we're good at and we enjoy. And playing a game is a voluntary attempt to overcome unnecessary obstacles. And with that, I'll jump off. But thanks, guys.